She thought he was just her landlord, distant, cold, unshakably in control. But he was watching her, obsessing over her, calculating the exact moment to step into her life and never leave. And when the truth shatters all her illusions, only one thing is certain: the lies between them were never just pretend. Stella Alonso was used to pressure, balancing 2 jobs, endless brand collaborations, and a popular lifestyle blog. She was always running from exhaustion, from expectations, from a version of herself that never quite felt enough. Her dreams of working in fashion had dulled under the weight of real life, a tyrannical boss, long nights, and bills that bled her dry. But nothing rattled her quite like the email she received that afternoon. Effective April 1st, the cost for a private room at Greenfield Senior Living will increase to $6,500 per month. The words sank into her chest like bricks. More the woman who'd raised her, protected her, than her rock was fading into dementia. Stella had been quietly paying for her care for years, shouldering the weight alone. Now, that weight was rising fast, and she was already drowning. It was snowing hard that evening. A blizzard warning loomed, but Stella, too anxious to sit still, chose to walk home. Her thoughts circled like vultures. She couldn't tell her friends they'd worry. She couldn't tell her family they'd judge. She'd just have to fix it, somehow. That's when she heard it. Miss Alonso, a voice rich, velvety, and dark as midnight. She froze, because she knew that voice, had only heard it 3 times in her life, and yet she felt it in her bloodstream. She turned, and there he was, Christian Harper, her landlord, CEO of a high-end security empire, owner of the building where she lived, the Mirage, and known for his icy, inhuman perfection. The kind of man who made silence louder, danger prettier, and power look effortless. He sat behind the wheel of a black McLaren, the snow frosting the windshield like a whisper. He looked at her, eyes unreadable and amber, then nodded to the passenger seat. Get in the car. It wasn't a request, and against every better judgment, she obeyed. Inside, the car smelled like spice and leather and something expensive she couldn't name. He turned up the heat. Her body thawed, but her nerves, they were screaming. Stella tried to lighten the tension. Christian, on the other hand, offered only clipped replies, surgical in their precision. Still, he noticed her. Not just her face or her outfit. He noticed the way her breath hitched, the way her hands trembled slightly, the way she always tried to smile even when it looked like she might cry. She wasn't just his tenant. Not to him. She was the exception to every rule he'd written for himself. And when he said her name, Stella, in that low, dangerous voice, she felt it in her spine. Back at the Mirage, they rode the elevator together. She lived 1 floor below him. A strange silence stretched between them, thick, charged, and electric. When she thanked him for the ride, he only gave her a cryptic reply. Can't have one of my tenants dying of hypothermia. Bad for business. He was smiling when he said it, just barely. But the look in his eyes, that wasn't business. Stella left him in the lobby, her heart still racing, her anxiety now tangled with something else: intrigue, curiosity, maybe even attraction. But she also couldn't shake the chill on her skin, the strange feeling that someone was watching her as she reached her door. That familiar, awful dread she hadn't felt in years, ever since the stalker from her past had vanished without a trace. She shook it off. She was being paranoid, right? Upstairs, Christian watched her leave and hated himself for it. He wasn't supposed to feel anything. He was calculated, clinical, built for strategy and war. He ran an empire, wiped enemies off the map, and never looked back. But Stella? She was chaos in a floral dress, sweetness wrapped in steel, and he couldn't look away. She didn't know it, but he'd already broken every one of his rules for her. Lowered her rent, let her live alone after her roommate left, invented a chore plant sitting just so she'd stay. He didn't care about the damn plants. He cared about the girl who watered them. And when another man, Dante Russo, showed up and dared to kiss her hand, Christian felt fire crawl up his spine. He didn't like people touching what was his. She wasn't his. Not yet, but she would be. 3 days later, Stella boarded a train to New York for a glamorous dinner hosted by Della Monte, the fashion house of her dreams. It was supposed to be a brand audition, the biggest break of her life, a chance to solve everything. But instead, it was a disaster. She was barely noticed. overshadowed by influencers with bigger followings and louder voices, especially Rhea, an ex-friend whose rise to fame had skyrocketed after dating another online star. Stella was fading into the background again until he walked in, Christian, in a tailored suit, smirk in place, eyes locked on her. Of all the places in New York, why was he here? Stella, this is a pleasant surprise. He took the seat beside her casually, intentionally, and in his presence, she felt the world narrow to just the two of them. He tilted the balance of the entire room, made everyone else irrelevant, and then, to her utter shock, he started helping her. He interrupted Rhea's attention grab, redirected the conversation, lied smoothly to the host, Louisa, about a perfect location Stella found for a shoot which she hadn't even mentioned. Somehow, he already knew about it, and just like that, Stella was back in the spotlight. Later, as they walked outside into the bitter cold, Christian stayed beside her. Tall, silent, and relentless, she accused him of following her. He denied it with a gleam in his eye. I wanted to see someone. There were so many unspoken words between them, things that could have changed everything, but he didn't say them. And just when she turned to ask him one last question, who did you want to see? He simply smiled, good night, Stella, and vanished into the dark. Stella returned to her hotel room, heart still pounding, only to find a dozen missed calls from her boss. She'd been caught at the event one she technically shouldn't have attended. The consequences were swift, cold, final. You're fired. In a matter of minutes, she lost her job at DC Style, and along with it, the last bit of security she had. No steady income, no backup plan, no idea how she'd pay for more now. And when she called her manager in panic, he offered one outrageous solution. You need to go viral. You need a boyfriend. A fake one if you have to. Couple content is everything. Stella refused at first, but the pressure was mounting. Rent, reputation, Della Monte, all of it. And the numbers on her Instagram, the ones she used to ignore, suddenly felt like the only thing she had left to hold on to. 1 million followers. A magic number, just out of reach. All she had to do was pretend to be in love. She needed a fake boyfriend to save her career. And the most dangerous man she knew was ready to step in. Stella Alonso didn't believe in faking love until life left her no choice. With her job gone and her finances spiraling, the dream brand deal with Della Monte was slipping through her fingers. She needed a miracle, or at least 1 million followers. And in Brady's words, there was only one way to get there fast. Find a boyfriend. Fake one. Real one doesn't matter. Just sell the story. At first, the idea felt like selling her soul. But as the days passed, so did her options. So she tried. She called old friends. She set up carefully screened dates. One pitched crypto. Another asked for sex halfway through dinner, and by the time she met the third guy, someone halfway decent, even he didn't feel right. Because the truth was, no one did. They weren't him. Christian Harper watched from afar. Of course, he knew about her job, about her struggle, about the frantic way she was testing men like samples in a showroom. He knew everything because he made it his business to know. She wasn't just a girl to him. She was a fascination, a puzzle, a fantasy he didn't want to own, he wanted to consume. And when he saw her with another man, laughing softly, leaning just a little too close, he snapped. The next day, she found him waiting. You want a fake boyfriend? Fine, let it be me. Stella froze. Christian, the cold, unreadable man who lived one floor above her, who made her skin tingle and her nerves crackle, was offering to pretend to date her. No strings, no expectations, just business. She laughed at first, said no, and yet, when she looked into his eyes, something in her trembled, because he wasn't smiling, he wasn't playing, and deep down, some part of her trusted him more than anyone else. They made a deal, public appearances on her terms, no kissing, no touching, no real feelings, just a convincing front for the internet. Christian even sweetened the offer, no rent, as long as she stayed in the building and continued the relationship. It was perfect, but from the beginning, Stella could feel it, the shift in the air when he looked at her, the burn beneath his calm, the way his fingers brushed hers just a little too long, the way he always seemed one heartbeat away from losing control. And when they posted the first picture, a candid shot he took himself, with his hand resting protectively on her waist, the internet exploded. Couple goals, power couple, obsession worthy. Stella's follower count surged. Brands reached out, and for the first time in weeks, she breathed easier. But even then, she sensed it. Christian wasn't pretending. From the outside, Christian played the role perfectly. Doting boyfriend, devoted protector, casual luxury, all sharp suits and shadowed smiles. But inside, he was anything but calm. He was obsessed. He didn't just want her safe. He wanted her, only his. He started engineering their appearances, choosing the lighting, the outfits, the settings, all under the guise of supporting her brand, but every detail was calculated, controlled. When she caught a stalker-like comment on her latest post, he deleted it before she could even respond. "Don't worry about it. I've got it handled." He said it like a promise, but it sounded like a threat. Then came the Delamonte dinner. They were invited, both of them. Stella looked stunning. Christian looked lethal. And together, they stole the room, until she walked in. Rhea, perfect, petty, performative, and ready to sabotage Stella's moment. The dinner was tense, but Stella held her own. And when the conversation turned, Christian stepped in with a single, casual lie that stunned her. Stella's family is very old money. She just doesn't like to talk about it. The table hushed. Rhea blinked. Stella stared at him, unsure whether to be grateful or furious. Afterward, when she confronted him, he shrugged. "You wanted to be taken seriously. Now they see you differently." But Stella couldn't ignore the feeling growing inside her. Christian wasn't helping. He was strategizing, shaping how the world saw her and how she saw herself. It was starting to feel less like support and more like possession. Still, the lie worked. Her follower count surged past 900,000. Brands began circling again. Louisa from Delamonte started texting her personally. It was working. So why couldn't she sleep? Why did she keep remembering the look in Christian's eyes when he watched her through the camera lens, like she was art, like she was prey? One night, they attended a charity gala. She wore emerald silk. He wore black, like a shadow stitched into velvet. They posed, danced, smiled, and then backstage their fingers brushed. Just a touch. But it lit her skin on fire. "This is just pretend," she whispered, like a warning to herself. Christian leaned in, breath hot against her ear. "Is it?" That night, she dreamed of his hands on her body, not gentle, but claiming, as if her bones already belonged to him. The next day, something shifted again. A package appeared at her door and marked, "No return address." Inside, a note, typed in all caps. "I see you. Nice new boyfriend." Her hands shook. She hadn't seen anything like this in years, not since the stalker who tormented her in college vanished without a trace. Christian noticed something was wrong the moment she walked into the lobby. Her face was pale, her pulse too fast. She told him about the note reluctantly, and that was the last straw. "You're moving in with me." Stella froze. "We can't." "That wasn't the deal. Deals change. You're not safe, and I won't let anything happen to you." It wasn't a request. And though every instinct screamed at her to run, she said yes. Christian's penthouse was sleek, cold, luxurious, exactly what she expected. But there were no personal touches, no warmth, no signs of life, until she walked in. Suddenly, the space felt alive. He stocked her favorite tea, set up a desk by the window, just the way she liked, adjusted the lighting because he knew she hated fluorescent bulbs, and at night, when she couldn't sleep, he was there. Never pushing, never crossing the line, but always watching, always near. And when she started crying quietly in the kitchen, at a.m., overwhelmed by everything, he simply pulled her into his arms and said nothing, just held her, like he'd never let go. Living together blurred everything. Mornings turned soft, dinners turned warm. The tension between them burned like a fuse, inching closer to the spark. One day, they returned from a photo shoot. She was laughing, truly laughing for the first time in weeks. Christian just watched her. "You're beautiful when you're happy." She turned, flustered. "I thought we weren't doing real feelings." His gaze pinned her to the floor. "Maybe I changed my mind." That night, she couldn't sleep again, and when she stepped out into the hallway in her robe, he was already there, as if waiting. Their eyes met, and something broke. The lines blurred slowly, and then all at once, Stella was standing in the hallway, wearing nothing but her silk robe, heart pounding like a war drum. She hadn't meant to run into Christian, hadn't expected him to be there. Eyes dark, jaw tight, shirt clinging to his chest like it too was bracing for what came next. He said nothing. He didn't need to. His gaze dropped to her lips. then rose, as if daring her to stop him. She didn't, and when his mouth finally met hers, it wasn't soft, it was wildfire. He kissed her like he owned her breath, like every second they'd spent pretending had only been foreplay for this the real thing. And she responded with a hunger that scared her, that thrilled her. Later, when they finally came up for air, she whispered, "This wasn't part of the deal." His voice was gravel. No, it wasn't, and still, neither of them stopped. After that night, nothing returned to normal. They still shared smiles for the camera, still posted picture-perfect moments for social media. But behind closed doors, it was raw, real, unfiltered. Christian worshipped her, not just her body, but her routines, her laughter, her stubbornness. He remembered every tiny detail. The way she drank her coffee, the way she frowned when she read, the scar on her hip she always covered with makeup, and slowly, she let herself fall. It wasn't supposed to happen. But the way he looked at her, like she was the only thing tethering him to reality, how could she not? But with intimacy came curiosity. And with curiosity came questions. Why didn't Christian ever talk about his past? Why were there no family photos, no keepsakes, nothing personal in his immaculate penthouse? Why did he always seem to know things he shouldn't? One afternoon, while he was out, Stella wandered into a locked room, the only place he'd asked her not to go. She shouldn't have opened the drawer, but she did. Inside, dossiers, reports, surveillance photos, screenshots from private accounts, names she didn't recognize and one name she did, hers, dozens of photos, notes about her routines, her stalker, her medical information, her life, and worst of all, dates from before they even met. Her stomach turned. She was still staring at the file when Christian walked in. He didn't shout, didn't panic. He simply shut the drawer and looked at her, calm, cold, steady. "I can explain." But the silence between them screamed louder than words. "You were watching me, long before I moved in, long before we started this fake relationship. I had to. You were in danger. You were the danger." Her voice cracked. Christian's eyes burned with frustration and something that looked almost like pain. "You think I wanted to feel this way about you? I fought it. I tried to stay away, but every time I saw you." He stopped, jaw clenched. "I didn't know how to stop." She backed away, her world cracking under her feet. "That's not love, Christian. That's control. I protected you. No, you caged me." The argument shattered what they had, for the first time since it all began. She left. Stella packed her things, heart shaking in her chest. She returned to her old apartment floor, alone. She couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe. The memories of Christian's touch warred with the horror of what she'd discovered, but her sense of betrayal was stronger than her desire. She shut down their relationship online, archived every post, blocked his number, and for days, there was nothing, until the new package arrived. Another typed note, "You don't need him, I'm still watching." Her scream caught in her throat. This time, there was no denying it, her stalker was back, and he'd never really stopped. She called the police. They opened a case, but their response was generic, bureaucratic. "We'll file a report. Keep your doors locked." She hung up, hands shaking. She needed to be strong. She needed to handle this herself. But when she returned from running errands the next day, the lock on her door was unlatched, and all the lights were on. She wasn't sure how she got out. Her legs moved before her brain did, sprinting down the hall, breath caught in her chest. She made it to the lobby, to the doorman, to anyone. The police came, searched, found nothing. But she knew what she'd seen: a shadow, a sound, a scent in the air that didn't belong. This wasn't Christian. This was him, the real stalker, the man who'd started it all and now wanted to finish it. She hadn't meant to call Christian, but when her fingers trembled around the screen, his was the only name she could dial. He arrived in under 10 minutes, not a word passed between them. He simply walked to her, pulled her into his arms, and held her like he'd been holding his breath since the moment she left. And she didn't pull away, because for all the darkness in him, he was still the only place she felt safe. This time, there were no lies. Christian showed her everything: the full history of her stalker, the methods he'd used to trace him, the threats he'd intercepted without ever telling her. He'd crossed a line, yes, but some part of her knew. He'd been the only one standing between her and a monster for years. Still, she had one final question. Why me? Out of everyone in the world, why did you fixate on me? He looked at her, eyes full of something raw and feral. Because you were the first thing I saw that didn't feel ugly. Because I was drowning. And you looked like air. They didn't kiss that night. They didn't make love. They simply sat in silence to broken people trying to rebuild something neither of them could name. Stella wasn't sure if she could ever trust him again, but she also knew there was no one else she wanted to trust. Not with her heart, not with her life, and definitely not with her soul. He protected her, obsessed over her, loved her, but in the end, it was the lies that broke her. Stella didn't fall back into Christian's arms overnight. After the stalker returned, after the terrifying break-in, after everything she'd seen in that locked drawer, she was cautious. But Christian didn't push. He waited, quietly re-entered her life like a man setting foot on holy ground. He started by simply being there when she changed her locks, when she reviewed surveillance footage, when the police shrugged and handed her a case number and a wheel. Let you know. And somewhere between one anxious night and the next, she started sleeping in his bed again. Not because she trusted him completely, but because he was the only one who never made her feel powerless. Their routine returned, piece by piece. Morning coffee, shared space, companionable silence, and at night long, burning kisses, tangled sheets. His voice murmuring words he didn't know how to say aloud. Stella still had doubts, but every time she looked at Christian, the man who once terrified her with his control, she now saw something else, a man who would tear the world apart to keep her safe. And when he quietly slipped his arm around her waist in public, she didn't flinch anymore. She leaned in. It was a normal afternoon. Stella returned home from a photo shoot to find another package by the door, but this time, it wasn't anonymous. Inside was a single Polaroid. Her, in bed, sleeping. The note read, "You look better without him. I'm so close." She dropped it. Her knees gave out. Christian was there in seconds, phone already in one hand, gun in the other. "We're done playing games." Christian called in every contact he had, private security, facial recognition software, threat analysts. No more tiptoeing. He used everything. City cameras, building access logs, even AI to run speech pattern recognition on past notes. And when the system pinged a match, he knew. The stalker wasn't just someone on the internet. It was Paul, the polite, quiet concierge who'd worked in the Mirage for years, who'd seen Stella nearly every day, who knew her routines, her unit, her plants, her friends. He'd been there the whole time. Christian didn't wait for the police. He followed Paul to an off-site storage unit, dark, forgotten, cold. What he found inside made his blood freeze. A shrine. Stella's photos, her stolen earrings, her old toothbrush, pages from her blog printed and underlined, a pillow with her name embroidered into it. Christian didn't hesitate. Turn around. Paul did, smiling. "You're the one who doesn't deserve her." He lunged. The fight was fast, brutal. Rage met obsession in a space filled with evidence of a love that was never real. Christian didn't kill him, but he wanted to. Paul was arrested. The story hit the news in waves. Social media stars, stalker captured, CEO hero saves girlfriend, twisted love story or calculated lie. Stella couldn't escape it, and even as she stood beside Christian through it all, smiling for interviews, thanking law enforcement, something inside her was unraveling. Because the real questions hadn't gone away. Yes, Paul had been the monster in the shadows. But what about Christian? What about the surveillance, the background checks, the way he watched her like she was breakable or his? It happened days later. Stella had just returned from a therapy session, something she'd started quietly, trying to make sense of the trauma and the truth. Christian was on the phone in his office, his voice low, urgent, double quotes, ... "No, she still doesn't know, and she can't. If she finds out I was the one who..." He stopped when he saw her. Her voice was ice. "What don't I know?" He hung up. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." And finally, he did. Christian hadn't just started watching her after she moved into the Mirage. He'd known about her years before, back when he was working on a separate investigation targeting a stalker ring in DC. He'd found Stella's name buried in a thread, a girl being hunted without knowing it. He watched to protect her, at first, but then, he'd intervened in her life without her knowing, blocked jobs she'd applied to keep her closer, hired her old roommate, had someone follow her home from late shoots, moved into the Mirage building just months after she did. He hadn't met her by accident. He'd designed it, and the moment she'd needed a fake boyfriend, He'd stepped into a role he'd been preparing for years. Stella couldn't breathe. All the walls she'd rebuilt cracked again. Everything she'd accepted, the protection, the safety, the way he knew her better than anyone, suddenly felt like a cage. You manipulated my entire life. I kept you alive. You used me. No, his voice trembled for the first time ever. I loved you. She stared at him, the man who had saved her, obsessed over her, lied to her, and wrapped her entire world in secrets. And that's the worst part, she whispered, because I loved you too. She left. This time, for real. Christian didn't chase her. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to lose something that truly mattered. She stopped posting, moved out, disconnected from their shared online life. She returned to therapy, focused on her brand, focused on breathing again. And for weeks, the only thing louder than the quiet was the ache. She left him for good. But some loves don't die, they wait. Life after Christian Harper was quieter. Too quiet. Stella focused on her brand, her healing, her independence. She no longer jumped at shadows or answered calls from unknown numbers. The stalker was gone. She was safe, but safety didn't mean peace. She missed the feel of Christian's hand on her back in a crowd. Missed the way he looked at her like she held the universe together. Missed the heat, the tension, the way he knew her in places no one else ever would. And at night, when she was most honest with herself, she missed his voice whispering, mine. Christian wasn't the same after she left. He moved through the days like a man underwater, heavy, quiet, breathless. Sold the mirage, stepped down from Harper's security, severed ties with every tool he once used to control his world. He didn't drink, didn't party, didn't beg, but he hurt. And when Dante asked him, what now? Christian only said, I lost the only thing that ever made me want to be better. Weeks passed, then months, and one day, Stella found a letter in her mailbox. No name, no return address, just her name on the front in handwriting she knew too well. Inside was a confession. I've lived my whole life behind walls, calculated, detached, dangerous. But you made me human. And then I broke the one person I swore I'd never hurt. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. But if there's still one corner of your heart that remembers what we were, not the lies, but the love, I'll be there, on the rooftop. Thursday, midnight. Stella read the letter 5 times. She didn't know what she was walking into. Didn't know if she wanted to forgive him. Didn't know if she could. But she knew this. She still loved him. And love, when it's real, when it's sharp and bruised and unforgettable, doesn't go away. It waits. It was freezing that night. The wind howled above the city. Lights shimmered like stars beneath her. And there he was, Christian Harper, alone, standing at the edge like a man who'd come not to fall, but to hope. He turned when he heard her steps, and for a second, just a second, the mask dropped. He looked afraid of her answer, of her silence, of whether the woman he loved could ever see him the same way again. She didn't say anything at first. She just walked to him, slow, measured, real. Then she whispered, you lied to me. I know. You broke me. I know. And I still love you. His breath caught. He didn't move, didn't speak. So she reached for his hand, trembling, warm, real, and said, but I need to know you're done hiding behind control. I need to know you choose me, not just protect me. I do. No cameras, no secrets, no games, none, ever again. He paused, then fell to one knee. No ring, no speech, just a man who had burned every bridge except this one. I can't undo the past. But if you give me the future, I swear, Stella, I'll never let go. She didn't need grand promises. She just needed him to mean it. And he did. They were still intense, still chaotic, still sometimes twisted. But now, they were honest. They made their relationship public again. Not for the brand, not for the clicks, but for them. Stella crossed 1 million followers. Not because of a man, but because she reclaimed her voice. And Christian? He built a new company, smaller, cleaner, no secrets, no shadows. And when people asked him why he'd walked away from power, he simply said, she was worth more than control ever was. They fought, they loved, they healed together. And one summer night, as they sat on their rooftop, the city glittering below them, Christian turned to her and said, this time, no lies, just us. And she smiled. That's all I ever needed.